Now we get started. So we are going to talk about My Health for Life primarily in the context of CAT, and also how to create prompts that are based on the My Health for Life guidelines, recipes that we created there. Just to let you know that the recipes that we're looking at here now, that you should see on my screen, they are in a draft version, so they're not final. I'm very happy to change, and this is, I think, the focus of the trial is in the Darling Downs area, Ipswich, Toowoomba, and so on. But if you have practices, if you are working in a practice and you're in the session today, by all means have a look at them, and if there is any feedback, say it doesn't work or it doesn't make sense, let me know. I can update this fairly quickly, and hopefully we'll take it from there. Just to say, it is a bit noisy in the background there. What I will do is I will mute you, and if you wanted to ask any questions, press *7 to unmute, because it is more people than we had in the beginning, so it does get a bit louder. So *7 to mute, and I'm just going to apply that now. And that's just happened. So I can't hear you now. If you want to talk, I'll put that in here. Press *7 to ask any questions. You can also type your questions into the chat messages box in the webinar client as well. But for the phone, *7, and then I will be able to hear you. All right. So we are looking at the recipes here. So on our main help site, just to get you back to the home there for those who joined later, we have all our products in here. Under Cat 4, there's a link directly to the recipes. There's lots of different recipes, as you can see. The ones we're looking at today are the ones under the My Health for Life topic. You can see them down here at the bottom. So with My Health for Life, they have created a flowchart there. So this is just straight up from their website. There's also a link to their site if you need more information, but I've just copied that flowchart on here. And when you look at that here, to find patients that are eligible potentially for the program, but also just people that are at risk, because that's what we're looking for, you can use this flowchart to go through. And then what I've done in the recipes, you can see the list up here, is to basically put the details of that flowchart into a step-by-step guide for CAT. And just to go through this very quickly, so they're using different criteria such as age, ethnicity. So when you're non-Indigenous, older than 45, when you're Indigenous, starting from 18. People with certain chronic conditions are excluded. People with other chronic conditions are included automatically, regardless of age. So if you're 24, non-Indigenous, but you have high cholesterol while taking cholesterol-lowering medication, then you would be eligible. Now, eligible for, or should have, these people go straight here. If you just, based on age or ethnicity and age, then there should be a diabetes risk assessment and or the absolute cardiovascular risk assessment, and then depending on the score, you might be eligible or not. Yeah, but people that meet these criteria, either one or multiple, they basically go straight to the eligible box. So what I've done in here, I've combined things from the guidelines from the flowchart into a number of different recipes, and the high risk patients are the ones that meet these criteria, and not just one, but multiple ones. I did put some more information. No, it's in the actual recipe. Let me look at it. So when you click on it, you get the recipes, and they all have the same format. You can export them into PDF if you wanted to have a local copy. You have the rationale, the guidelines, and so on, targeted patients, and then it talks you through. And we're going to do this in CAT. I don't have to look at the recipe for that, but I just wanted to show you there are some disclaimers in here once we get into the more detail of the actual eligibility criteria. And there's one being the gestational diabetes, and the other one being they define high blood pressure as having 3 separate readings by a GP. Now, there's 2 things in here actually. We can't see who's entered the GP. We do not report on that. So it could be a nurse or a GP who's entered that. which may or may not be a problem. But the main issue is that we do not look at 3 readings. The way CAT extracts data, and this is things like blood pressures, pathology, MBS items, and so on. When you do a data collection in CAT, the only item that will be extracted is the most recent one. So we will only ever in CAT, when we go into my CAT now, so I've got my extract sitting here. These are just for my demo system. We're going to load the 9,206 patients here. So this extract here, just ignore that it's a bit old. If you look at, for example, the blood pressures in here, there's only one blood pressure result per patient in this graph represented. So the 874 people with high blood pressure, that could be as recent as the day before today, or my extract is from April, as I said, but if it would be today's data, then it could have happened this morning or yesterday, just before the collect button was clicked. Or if you sort it, you can see the oldest blood pressure that I have in my demo data is actually more than 8 years old. But regardless of the age of it, it is the most recent one. So this patient did not have any blood pressure entered since 2009, and that's why it's in there. But in any case, there's only one. So if you look at the data extracts here, you can see we've got one from February, we've got one from January, and so on. So in theory, depending on the patient's visits and what data has been entered, there could be multiple data sets obviously in there, multiple blood pressures in there, one that was entered in February and one that was from January, but we don't know that. And so CAT is not designed to really give you a whole string of results. So that's why the issue of blood pressure, we can find people with high blood pressure, but only with one, based on one result, not on 3. So in quite a few cases, this next step after using a recipe, a guideline such as this, would be to go into the patient's record after finding those patients and then verify. So that's blood pressure. And the other one is the issue gestational diabetes. While we have a filter in CAT, if you go to my filters here under conditions, you can see there's a gestational diabetes filter in here. What that will find if I apply that filter, and I'm not sure how many we have here. So there are 44 patients there, correctly or not, all women. I'm a bit suspicious about the 65-year-old because the way we report gestational diabetes is only if it is an active condition. So if a woman is pregnant and is being diagnosed during her pregnancy with gestational diabetes, then after the pregnancy, either nothing happens and the gestational diabetes should be made inactive, or potentially she might develop type 2 diabetes or whatever else happens. But the gestational diabetes should not remain active, because that's something you, by definition, you can't actually have. So that shows me that there's probably some patients where that hasn't been made inactive, but the point is more that we cannot find patients that did have at any time in their past an active condition, an active diagnosis for gestational diabetes, because we can only find people that currently have gestational diabetes. So that's something that we need to either leave out, or there might be something else that we are talking to the Heart Foundation about this to possibly develop a custom report. And in a custom report, we can do lots of things that we can't do in CAT through the user interface with the filters. So that might well be coming, but it's not, it'll take a bit of developer time and testing and the usual things to get it done. So currently that's what we have. And let's just go through this as an example for how to find people. In this case, remember, we're looking at the high risk patients. So these are people that are meeting multiple conditions, multiple of the eligibility conditions in there. So clear my filters. Let's have a look at it. So firstly, what we can't do in CAT is find people that are indigenous and 18 and older, or non-indigenous and 45 and older, because we can't put all this criteria into one. So that would be the first decision to make. And I know this clinic has very few indigenous patients, so we'll start with the age of 45. That would meet the criteria in here. let's go back to this one here. So the age criteria 45 and over. So we've got those in there. And that would be as easy as just putting 45 and leaving the end age open. Just anyone older than 45. Now, if you wanted to look for the indigenous patients older than 18, then obviously you put 18 in there and you'd select your indigenous under ethnicity. We're not doing that now. Under conditions, we need to exclude people with a number of conditions, diabetes being one of them, just to double check here. Not eligible, type 1 or type 2 diabetes, heart disease, stroke, chronic kidney disease. So what we can do in here, under cardiovascular disease, we can tick the no box, I should say, for all of these. So people with any condition in this area, any type of diabetes will be excluded. And then there is chronic renal failure. That was another one. Let's just double check. Stroke is we already undid that, and chronic kidney disease. So that's my main exclusion criteria, and I've got those in there now. Yeah, so that gives me now a list of patients that are older than 45 without a diagnosis of diabetes, stroke, coronary heart disease, and so on. All of these ones listed, and also no renal disease. But you can see there's still more than 3,000 patients. So if you look back at that flow chart, you can see we're looking at the 45 and older. Okay, what's our question here? Identify inactive gestation. No, we cannot identify anyone with inactive gestational diabetes. Well, yes, we could. I'm not sure if that's the right way to find them though, because if you have patients with, you know, you might find pre-diabetic females, but I don't know if that necessarily finds if they have HbA1c's done, and so it's worth giving a go. To be honest, you can definitely play around with that, because we do have the the measures are there. If you look at under measures, if you look under pathology, we have fasting bloods and random sugars as well, and the HbA1c. So yeah, absolutely could be worth playing around with that. I probably prefer to do something with our extraction to maybe be able to report on people with a previous diagnosis of gestational diabetes, but that involves, of course, work on the programming side, and it might take a bit. So definitely, it's an option to play around with existing pathology results and so on, and see what you can find. Yeah, absolutely. Pardon me. So just back to our demographics. So everyone's older than 45. Everyone has not been diagnosed with any of the chronic problems. Leaves you with a very high number. So I think this practice here is pretty normal, as in they don't have any particularly sick or particularly healthy patients. About 9,000 of them, which is probably also not an unusual size, at least for in a more populated area. So the question is, what do you do in a practice with that many patients? It's too many to look at their records. It's definitely too many to refer to the My Health for Life service. It's too many to do a cardiovascular risk assessment, and so on. So the idea, or the whole rationale behind this, the high risk patients, was to make this a more targeted, a more relevant search for people that are at a higher risk. So what we keep doing, basically, we're just adding more search criteria. So we're currently here, we have the start age 45. We unticked the CVD group and renal failure and diabetes, so we're pretty much here. Now, I've spoken to David and from the Heart Foundation, so he said he doesn't want to look at results that are older than 2 years. Yeah, and this will come into play when we look at the high blood pressure and the cholesterol as well. So that's something to add, and I'm just going to do that now. So this is the date range result. A very important report for those who may or may not be aware. Just to very quickly, what this will do is any results that have been entered into the patient's record more than 24 months ago, those patients will be sorted into the category as not recorded, and this will apply to all measurements, to all pathology, MBS items, and a couple of other things. Just to show you the example here, when we look at blood pressure, for example, we still have the 3,000 people there. The filter is not applied yet. There's 1,264 with nothing recorded. If I recalculate, you can see there's actually 1,664 people that had no blood pressure recorded outside the last 2 years. So there's another 400, about 30% more people with nothing recorded. And that means that these results here is still very generous, the last 2 years, but that's something, again, the recipes are really just a starting point. Certainly, if practices find, well, we're still getting way too many patients that we can't look at those, you could reduce the numbers further by going to the filter and say, well, we're not interested in 2 years, it's way too long, we want to look at the last 12 months or the last 6 months. But that's, again, I'll put the 2 years in there. Currently, that's what we're looking at. So back to my recipe, 24 months. Now this is the filter that we're looking for, or that we already applied. I'm a step ahead there. And as I said in here, this will most likely produce a large list of patients, more than 3,000, as you can see in mine here. So we're now going to narrow that down further, and the whole idea of that narrowing down is to find people that are at a higher risk. So yes, while the 3,057 patients in here might well be eligible for further assessment, it's beyond the resources normally of clinics to look at so many patients. So we're going to narrow it down. One of the things that the My Health for Life is looking at is risk factors such as the familial hypercholesterolemia. I can say yes in there. Is there something else? Let me just check. We don't have any. Oh yeah, medications. Yeah. So they're not interested in people with high cholesterol, but they're interested in people with high cholesterol that are taking lipid modifying medication already. So that of course will narrow it down further, and we're going to apply that under the medication filter. Under heart medication, we have lipid modifying, and we can just say yes. So that means people taking either statins or any other lipid modifying medications will be included in the search. So let's have a look at our numbers now. And that's made a big difference, because now we have only people with the familial hypercholesterolemia included, and only those of them that are taking lipid modifying medication. I can show you another view of those people there if we go to the disease tab. So you can see this is why we have 367 people. They all have the same diagnosis. You can also see none of them have diabetes, because that's one of the excluded conditions. But we have people with hypertension, for example, people with asthma, mental health, osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, and so on. But this is our population we're currently interested in. Older than 45, exclude a number of conditions, and include one risk factor for hypercholesterolemia, and also people that are taking medication. So we can now look at their measures, and that could be the blood pressure. So you can see out of those, there are 96 that are 140 over 90. Just keep in mind this is up to 2 years old, not older, but still could be quite old. We can have a look at that. Double click on here, and you can see the blood pressure date in here. So the oldest is from July 2015. Remember, my data is from April this year, so it's not quite 2 years old, but it's not that far off. And the most recent one is literally, my data is from the 20th of April, and that's the day this person had their blood pressure done. This one's 2 days old, and so on. So that would be the blood pressure. So you have 96 people here that might be of interest to, very likely are of interest. And you could separately look at pathology and look at lipids and at high cholesterol level. And again, it is your choice there. We put in the recipe higher than 5.5. Let me just show you. So you can look at only the high blood pressure, 140 over 90, and the cholesterol 5.5 and higher. But you could also choose other parts of the graph. You might want to start at 6.5 and higher, but so you could well do this. When we select more than one part of the graph, we get we can't use a double click, we need to use the export here to get the list of patients and their details. And you can see there's now 59 patients here, their date of the last cholesterol and the actual result. So that would be looking at them separately. And sorry, how many were there? 59. Yep. Now there's a lot of things to potentially consider. We know these are people at risk based on their diagnosis and also they're taking medication. 50 of them did not have any cholesterol recorded in the last 2 years. That could be also a group of patients of interest. Yeah, if you, for one, you could stick to the guidelines and say we're interested in those patients with high cholesterol only, and that would be what I did before, selecting them. Or you could say, actually, we know they're at risk, we know they're taking medication, but they didn't have the pathology done, so we would like to see them anyway to get them up to date with their cholesterol. That's slightly different from what the My Health for Life actually is aiming at, but it's still something that I think in this context is very relevant because you're already looking at patients at risk, and this would add, if we don't know what their cholesterol is, you can't really tell. They might all be in the high range and should be included, or they might be managing, the medication might be working well and so on. But for these 59 people here, clearly it's not working, or they're not taking the medication. That's another question. But they definitely meet the criteria of the eligibility there in terms of risk. So this is again the 59 people in here, and if we go back to my measures, remember the blood pressure, there were 96 people here with high blood pressure. Let me just tell us that. So you could look at them separately, and if you just go back to the recipes for a sec to show you that in here. See, I created these separately. Find patients with high blood pressure, find patients with high cholesterol. That's basically what we've done so far. But because our aim here is to find people at high risk so that they meet multiple of these criteria, I'm going to bring those criteria together. And let me just show you in the recipe again, highlighted the blood pressure here and highlighted in here. And what we're doing now is called a cross tabulation. So yeah, we've got the people, only those with 140/90 selected. Again, you could choose differently. We still have people with cholesterol more than 5.5 selected. To now display only those people that meet both high cholesterol and high blood pressure, you need to use that report button up here. So we call it cross tabulation because you're bringing different tabs, in this case the cholesterol tab and the blood pressure tab together, and only those patients meeting both high blood pressure and high cholesterol will be included. And that's how it's done. And you can see we're now only looking at 12 people. And I think this is sort of the main message from this, going through this exercise, going through the recipe. We started off with more than 3,000, but in the end now we're looking at 12 people that meet the risk factors, that have had measures at least in the last 2 years that were high, either high cholesterol or blood pressure, or both. Yeah. So in this case, no, sorry, they have both, not or. Yeah, this is an and search. That's important. So we have only those people that have a high cholesterol above 5.5 and a blood pressure 140/90. I was just a bit confused looking at the first one, but they have a diastolic of 101. That's why they're included. Whereas this one is just the systolic is high. So that's how the blood pressure is counted there. And I mean, this one looks like a typo to me because the 780 probably wouldn't be alive. Yeah, so that's another little data quality check there, because you could just go in and fix that, because that's clearly a zero that slipped in there for some reason. And then that patient might drop off there, but they still have very high cholesterol. So there might be a reason why they're on the list after all. But just to repeat, a cross tabulation in general, you select something on one report, like I've done here, leave it selected, go to another one, and select, in this case, high blood pressure in here. Now, as I said, if you wanted to include, say, people with no cholesterol recorded, because we know they at particular risk and they are taking medication already for the lipids, you could add those. And you can see adding those 50 people with nothing recorded, only adds 4 with also high blood pressure. So there's a very small percentage of those, and there's one of them. No cholesterol recorded, but quite high blood pressure, a record of that. Like I said, the recipes are a starting point to give you an idea, or in this case, quite specific to say this is the population we are asking for. But by no means are they the the definite way to find the patients you're after. So I would hope that looking at these My Health for Life recipes will trigger some ideas. People going, oh, okay, we already got this group of patients identified, but we can actually take this further, we can add other measures or pathology results, or just as I did here, adding people with nothing recorded. And you could do the same here. You could say, well, they all should have blood pressure done as well, and yeah, obviously your numbers will go higher again, and now we're at 75 there. So if you stick with the recipe as it is, then they meet all of the criteria that we selected, and there's only 12 patients. That's a number I would say most clinics could definitely start with. They could easily, or at least hopefully easily, invite them in, recall them, and then have a look at their chart. How, when was that last result taken? You can have a look at it. It won't show the dates in here because that's it doesn't show both columns as it does in the individual reports, but we know they were done in the last 2 years. So if they come in and it's a year old, the result, it might be a reason to get them a new lipid result done and so on. But that's definitely the most restrictive way of searching for people there. So they're just the ones that meet all eligibility. Let me just scroll up again to the recipes. So the other ones, as I mentioned before, they are just the individual ones. So these are just all indigenous patients based on their age and ethnicity. These are people with a high CV event risk, which not all patients would have all the measures in place, but we do have a report in CAT. That's the CV event risk report. And you can see out of the 367 people, remember the filter is still in place, actually all of them are in a high, above 16%. There's a couple that are in the 20 to 24%, but that's not that surprising because this report looks at cholesterol, it looks at blood pressure, it looks at smoking and so on. So yeah, that is a group of patients that are at particularly high risk anyway. Right, so that was just, as I said, the recipe. Now, if we wanted to do a prompt, and I'm pretty sure I put that in here at the bottom of that as well, just to check that we have it there. High cholesterol, yes. So if you go to our recipe site after this session, because you're not quite sure how that all worked, all the details are in here. So let me show you how you can do that. And I didn't start with that view, probably should have, but more habit than anything. When you start CAT, I nearly always go to the CAT 4 view, where you get all of the reports. There's the one thing that you need to remember if you want to create prompts, you need to be in the daily view. The reason, or the main reason, is that we don't create these prompts for all available reports. We can't be restricted or limited to the reports that you can see now in the daily view. And there's still quite a few, and all the filters work as they do. They're all there. It's just that not all the individual reports are there. So you can see my filter is still in place, but what it's lost when I switched over to the daily view is the selection on the individual charts. So just to firstly repeat what we did before, so people with high blood pressure and pathology cholesterol above 5.5, so exactly the same that we did before. Remember those 12 people here. If you wanted to create a prompt in Topbar that alerts the clinicians when anyone at the clinic presents that has all of these conditions in place, the way to create the Topbar prompt is to go to report, and at the bottom here, prompt at consult Topbar. Yeah, so that's what you can select. If you can't, if that's not visible, firstly check that you're in the daily view, because it won't be visible if you are in the full CAT4 view or any of the others. Secondly, you need to make sure that your CAT and your Topbar are actually linked. And maybe before we continue, I'll just show you how you can very easily, there's a number of ways to check it. The best way, and that way you would also immediately be able to link it, is go to Edit and Preferences, and there is a Topbar tab in here. Now my server is called localhost. Your server is very likely called something else. If you're using best practice, it's always called BPS something number. But if there's nothing written here, that's already suspicious. So the easiest is, in any case, and you can't break anything, you click on Edit and then just say Find Topbar Database. And even though it says it may up to take 5 minutes, I've never seen it taking that long. On mine, it's immediate. It might take a bit longer on a network because it will query the service, but yeah, 5 minutes I think is a bit too pessimistic there. So we've got a connection found, click OK. You can then say test connection. It will not take 1 minute, I guarantee you. There you go, connection successful. That's it. You have now successfully linked Topbar to CAT. Yeah, I just need to, it'll refresh that. You have to select your slices of the graph. So now we have linked this particular instance of CAT with Topbar. Please be aware that this is not going to affect anyone else. So if your CAT is linked to Topbar, it doesn't mean that someone else's is as well. So it might have to be repeated on multiple computers. The user guide also specifies that, so you can do that, or you can give our support team a call if you're not sure, or you can of course watch the video of this webinar and you can follow my online recorded steps that I just did. But let's assume you've selected, you've connected CAT to Topbar. You select all of this again, third time now, high blood pressure, and click on report. There are my 12 patients again. Prompt at console Topbar, click on go, and you can see all my filters because that will be visible in the prompt, so people know who are the patients that are actually, this whole prompt is based on. And then you need to give it a name, and this is what will be displayed to the clinician when a patient meeting the criteria presents. And you could say patient, oh, you can just call it my health for life eligible patient. I would probably recommend to add something like what's the action, yeah, do risk assessment or whatever it is. So I don't think there's a length. You can probably type a bit more, but I'd still keep it short because that's what will be displayed then in Topbar as the prompt when a patient presents. Clicking on OK, and that's it. You've just created a prompt for these 12 people, the ones with high blood pressure and high cholesterol. And just to answer the question before, it's exactly the same process. You could say either just for no cholesterol recorded, go to the bottom, prompt at console, go and say, high risk patient, please record cholesterol. Yeah. Very good idea. 006053, thank you. Yep, so you could, and this is completely the choice of the clinic. I just have to emphasize this. When you're using prompts at a clinic, this is something that needs to be communicated. It's something where the staff at the clinic, they need to be all on the same page. They need to be aware of that this is happening. They need to know why it's been happening, and they need to be reasonably happy to actually use this tool, because what's the point in creating prompts that no one knows where they come from or what they're about, but also that they don't actually want to be prompted to do anything. You know, so if there is consent, if people are happy to do this, give it a try at least, then by all means I think this could work really well. If there's just a lonesome warrior that hacks away at the keyboard using CAT and creates one prompt after the other, it's probably not going to go very far. Yeah. So this is an example for the no cholesterol recorded, and that's obviously what you put in or could put in there. And again, you can do the same thing just with the blood pressure, or you can combine the two. Lots of options. So you can basically pick anything from these tabs, from the different reports. And you could also say, you know, I want to change my filter criteria. I want to have a date range of 12 months or 6 months, and you can put that in the prompt and say, no blood pressure recorded in the last 12 months. Yeah. Again, please just see it as an example. And I think the My Health for Life ones are pretty good examples because they go across multiple reports. They include quite a few filters, but this could be a lot simpler. One of the things that this particular clinic, and I'm just going to show you what I mean, I'm clearing my filters, they got a few or quite a lot of patients. So this cardiovascular disease, the in italics, if you click here, it will be people with any of these. What we don't have is a no box in here. I don't actually know why, because we do have it up here, but you can only include any of these. You can't exclude. That's why before I had to do this for the My Health for Life. But just going back to this one. So if we look at people with heart disease and recalculate that, there's 400 of them. If we want to look at their blood pressures, they should all have blood pressures done every 6 months. Yeah, so let's have a look at that. And we can go into their blood pressure and we can see there's quite a few people here, 118 of them, that have nothing recorded in the last 6 months. Now, obviously, what we want to make sure is, are these people that have actually visited, for example? So you could say they had at least one visit in the last 6 months. You could say they are active patients, lots of different choices there. I probably prefer this one here because people might be new patients or for other reasons. You can see out of the 400, 372 of them have actually visited in the last 6 months, but we still have 90 with nothing recorded. It's completely up to you, the criteria, but you could now create a prompt here for those 90 patients, and that would be patients with cardiovascular disease but no blood pressure recorded in the last 6 months. So whenever they present, they would get a prompt in Topbar, and I should show you as well what that actually looks like, shouldn't I? Let me just start MD. Yeah. And my Topbar as well. It's normally running, but I must have turned it off before. So just let me start Topbar. So we've got a patient open in MD, and I'm just going to start Topbar. Here it is. Because I've linked my clinical system with Topbar, it will log me straight in because I'm already logged into MD. So with that patient open, I know there's a prompt that is active for her. That's why I opened Maureen. She's my demonstrator. I always pull her up. So Topbar shows the prompts like this with the little cross there, the plus sign in the circle in the CAT prompts app. And this is how the prompt text. Remember when we entered this in here? If you go in here and say prompt name, whatever you type in here will be presented in here. And that's why I said it's good to put the action in there that you actually want to happen. When you click on it, you can see the details, so the text again, but also the criteria. So what were we looking for when we created it? So in our case, would be a lot more in there. Patients without this condition, but with this, taking lipid-lowering medication, and so on. And then in here, reports used, it would show high blood pressure and high cholesterol. And then whatever text you picked, My Health for Life patients, please do a risk assessment, and so on. So that's how the prompts work. Just from what I said before, as in the clinic staff need to be happy about this, people need to be on board. You may find that there are people at the clinic that are not interested in doing that. They say, no, we don't want to be bothered by this. Now, for one, they might not be using Topbar in the first place, so it's not an issue. But if they are using Topbar for other things, they can actually turn off prompts. So prompts that are created in CAT are opt-out. You can see this is the new one that I've just created. There's another one that was fairly new, or not that new. By default, all Topbar users or clinical Topbar users will get these prompts unless they turn them off. Yeah? So it's an opt-out only for me, current Topbar user. It doesn't affect anyone else. But if you say at the clinic, 3 doctors that are keen to work with it, maybe the nurses that want to work with the prompts as well, and some people say no, we don't want, we've got enough things that are flashing in our eyes all the time, we don't want that, so they would actually turn them off. Or considering that it is fairly low impact, you know, all the prompt does is puts a little number up here in the red circle, they might just choose to ignore it. You know, that would probably be the easier way. Oops. So that's the way the prompts are displayed, you know, after you create them in CAT. And there's also a feedback mechanism, as in when you create prompts, you do get a report back what actually happened to the prompt. And that's under the prompt menu here in CAT. So you can see there's a Topbar entry in there, and it shows the prompts that were created. You can scroll down. I'll just show you one that I know had a fair bit of use. There's the one here with the high respiratory risk patient, and you can see the number of patients that were where the prompt has been displayed. So once it's once Topbar recognizes there's a patient meeting these criteria, it will display the prompt, and CAT can see that, the count. It tells you who created it, the status of the prompt. You can from here also delete them. So let's say you made a mistake and you accidentally created a prompt that comes into action for every patient that is opened up. Just delete the prompt again, that's not a problem. And when you double click, is a status of the prompt, prompt presented, received by, so the clinician that's logged onto Topbar. So there's, you see the prompt status. It will show either dismissed, or there's a couple of other options when you look back in Topbar here. You can dismiss or you can defer it, yeah, or you can just, of course, completely ignore it. Then it will just say displayed in that CAT report. But yeah, dismissed or deferred is what the clinicians can do. I don't think there's much point really in that. They could dismiss a prompt if they feel that this is not relevant for that particular patient, but deferring it by default, for some reason on American dates, it's 3 months ahead, so it won't be displayed for the next 3 months. But I think it's probably easier to just ignore it than to go through the effort of actually deferring a prompt so you don't see it for the next 3 months. And yeah, that's basically how you create a prompt in CAT, how you can get admittedly limited feedback, but at least a little bit in terms of what's going on. So the prompts will only work, they will only work when all these criteria are met. So if Maureen here would stop smoking and that would be updated, she would not get the prompt anymore. Of course, if she get a spirometry recorded, again, she wouldn't get the prompt anymore. If we create a prompt based on a date range, say no blood pressure in the last 6 months, then the prompt would go away for 6 months, but come the end of the 6 months, the criteria would apply again, and that means the patient is back on getting the prompt again. Okay, in that case, thank you very much.